Hello and welcome back to Deep Sleep Creep's YouTube channel. Today we're going to be listening to 3 more horror stories. If you enjoyed listening to it, please consider commenting and subscribing. So get comfortable and let's begin. I've been a mortician for over a decade and have never had any issues with anything paranormal. Around 6 months ago, a new girl started working at the funeral home. She and her family claim to be sensitive, do different divination rituals, and are psychic. She's even admitted to me she has done black magic to get back at an ex-boyfriend, which I find disturbing, but here's the deal. Like I said, nothing has ever happened to me regardless of the funeral homes I've worked in. I've been there alone all hours of the night. Nothing. So the past few months, weird things have started happening. My other co-worker has had weird things happen at her home, like things randomly appearing. Her son is sleepwalking and speaking to someone outside, or pictures are flying across the room. At the funeral home, we've heard whispering on multiple occasions and doors slamming. Now comes my turn. The other night I'm embalming alone, and I thought I kept seeing someone standing out of the corner of my eye, but I kept telling myself it was my mind messing with me. The door that leads outside is right outside of the room where I'm embalming. I have the door open to the embalming room. The door that goes outside has a metal bar that you pull to latch and lock it. Everything is locked, obviously since I'm alone. So no more than 5 minutes after I kept seeing someone standing out of the corner of my eye, I hear a massive slam against the metal bar on the door. It was so loud, I about had a heart attack. My main question here is, what is your opinion? Do you think it's someone I've helped over the years making themselves known, or do you think it's more? I personally think the new girl brought something with her. Her grandmother has even told her she has an attachment. I'm terrified and really don't want to work alone. I'm afraid if it's more than just a spirit, cleansing will make it more upset and make things worse. Help me, please. This will be a longer story, but is completely true and worth the listen, even if you don't believe me. For some background, my grandma, Yaya, and grandfather, Popu, bought a ranch home in the suburbs after moving from downtown Detroit in 1969. They were the second owners of the house, and it was built in the 1930s. My Popu passed away in 1981 in the home. My mother has 4 older siblings who had all moved out by that time. She stayed living with my Yaya until she married my dad in 1986. Nothing weird ever happened that she can recall from her childhood. My grandparents were Greek immigrants. They were devoted to orthodoxy, and there were at least 5 crosses and icons in every single room of the house. So it always felt like I was in church when I was there. The first time I recall any odd things going on was in the early 2000s. My Yaya was in her early 80s at the time, and told my mother and I one day, "Don't tell anyone, but at night before I go to bed, there are people in my bedroom that watch me." Immediately my mum got concerned that this was signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Thankfully, it was not. We attributed it to her glaucoma. In hindsight, that makes no sense, or that she was in a dreamlike state, but not yet asleep. Didn't hear much about anything odd after that. In 2012, my parents separated, and my 3 siblings and mother moved in with my Yaya. My sister and I had our own rooms on the first floor, and my mother and brother stayed in the basement. Odd things started to happen. The motion sensor light at the bottom of the basement steps used to go on and off by itself in the middle of the night, according to my brother. The hallway linen closet would be open in the morning, even though it was shut previously. Some banging in my Yaya's closet. All a bit odd, but nothing too crazy. One night I had a few friends over, and we were drinking in the basement when my mum was out and my brother was at my dad's. All of a sudden we heard a loud crash from a downstairs closet, and when I opened it, the metal pole, which had 3 light jackets hanging on it, was split down the middle. It was odd because there was nothing in the closet itself that would have fallen to make that sort of banging sound. I let it go and didn't think much of it. In March of 2015, my yaya sadly passed away at the age of 95. She passed in her bedroom. We knew she was going to go soon, and before we went to bed, my siblings, Mom and I prayed over her. At about 2 a.m. I woke up out of sleep to someone saying, "My name, get up." And when I went into her room, she was gone. Maybe it was a dream. I don't know, but thinking about it freaks me out. After her death, things went haywire. One night, my sister and I were watching television in the living room, and it was probably 10:30 p.m. I went to the kitchen to get something to eat. The light from the TV was bright enough that I could easily find my way to the kitchen. I looked at the back door because I felt odd. That's really the only way I could describe it. The back door had a peephole, and the light in the backyard was automatically set to turn off at 11 p.m. Normally you could see the light shining through the peephole, but I didn't. As I adjusted my eyes, I saw a large black shadow standing at the landing in front of the back door. I froze and turned my head and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, it was gone. Needless to say, after that, I felt extremely uncomfortable in the home. Prior to this, I never had any real paranormal experience. I was on the phone with my mom and simultaneously pulling into the driveway of the house. We were finishing up our conversation when I looked at the front door. It was the kind of screen door that had a white bottom and then a window that would begin at about the waist of a 6-foot adult. What I saw was my mum, kneeling in front of the door, so I only saw her eyes and her curly black hair peeking over the bottom of the window. As I was still on the phone with her, I said, "Mum, what are you doing? Stand up." And she told me that she wasn't home and would be there in a few minutes. Again, I froze, shut my eyes, and when I opened them, the eyes and curly black hair were gone. I told her I wasn't going into the house until she came home, and she didn't ask why. When she pulled in, I told her what I saw, and she said, "Honey, I was hoping none of you would see her." She went on to explain that since Yaya passed, a small girl with black curly hair and a red dress would often appear in her bedroom downstairs. She gave one specific example. She was watching TV on her laptop late at night, looked up and saw her standing in the middle of the room with a big smile on her face. All my mum said was, "Hello," looked back at the TV, and then she was gone. I guess this was their typical interaction. Things like the cellar door would be open, I would latch it, come back down to retrieve my laundry, and it would be open again. The banging on the closet doors got worse. The microwave door and oven drawer would be left open. If we called my mum's phone, it would often sound like static if she was in the house. The worst of it happened one night, about 2 weeks before we were to move out of the house. We sold it roughly 5 months after my yaya died. My siblings, mother and I were sitting in the dining room laughing and having a couple drinks. Without saying a word to each other, we all went silent. The air in the room got heavy, and it felt like the oxygen was sucked out of it. All of the sudden we heard an ungodly wailing from the basement. The only way I can describe it is a mountain lion yelling. This was accompanied by stomping up and down the stairs. I hid under the table with my ears covered. My sister sat still, my little brother cried, and my mum, the absolute badass she is, ran down the stairs and screamed, "In the name of Jesus Christ, get the F out of my house." We were all absolutely terrified, beyond terrified. That night, we all slept in my room together. My mom and brother slept in the living room until we moved out. Nothing too crazy happened after that night in the 2 remaining weeks we lived there. It's been 8 years since, and we occasionally talk about it. My mum's siblings don't believe it because they never had any strange things going on in the time they lived there. I sometimes wonder if the new residents have had anything happen. They haven't sold the house yet, at least. Since my family has not experienced any type of paranormal things going on, but wow, I do not want to live in a haunted house again. My father passed away almost 3 years ago now, and to this day I can't wrap my head around what I saw that night. He was in hospice, non-verbal, drugged and asleep when he passed. Being COVID times, only my mother and I were by his side at that moment. Only 2 visitors were allowed at a time. After he had stopped breathing, my mum and I were just staring at him peacefully and holding hands, one on either side of his bed. It was dim in his room, so dim that my vision was kind of grainy. And we were both really exhausted after a 5-day off and on vigil. It being in the middle of the night, my mum pulled the cord for the call nurse, and we waited. As I was staring at the wall above his head, it seemed like I could see some kind of vapor or something. It reminded me of the way heat distorts your view over a campfire. Totally clear, but distorted and wavy moving. My mum caught me looking, and I must have had a puzzled look. She shocked me by saying, "Do you see that?" So she saw it too. Up till then, I figured I was just too fatigued and imagining things. I replied, "Yeah. What is it?" She didn't reply, just shrugged her shoulders in an "I don't know" kind of suggestion. Usually she would be one to try to take the opportunity to point out some kind of religious proof. She is very Catholic, and I am not. I said, "Let's switch sides," because I wanted to see if it was the same from her vantage point. So we got up and did that. I reached out to see if I could feel any heat emanating from my dad's head, but nothing. I was really trying to figure this one out and find a logical explanation. It's not like he would have had that much more heat than before coming out anyway, considering that his body wouldn't be making as much. And surely not enough to distort the air. The room wasn't cool at all, as my dad always complained of the cold. This went on for a long time, maybe 20 minutes or more. Then the nurse came in, and we were asked to step out for a minute. When we came back in, the window had been opened by the nurse, and a fresh breeze blew in. The nurse explained that they always open a window to let the spirit escape, which was news to me. My dad was covered at that point, and there was no more of that phenomenon. Guys, what did I see? I'm a skeptic. I don't know if I believe in the realm of the spirit, although I find the idea interesting. Please let me know.